Welcome to the Dissident Daughters podcast. I am Ada, and today I have Jezebel back with me. Hi! Yay! You all missed her so much, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. They did.
Yes. We have missed her terribly. Actually, so she went up to college. It's been over a month now.
Like 2 months?
No, it hasn't been 2 months. We'll just say it's been 6 weeks. Anyways.
What month is it?
It's September, you weirdo. Okay, don't take her word for it.
Like 1 month.
It's been
feels like 2 months.
It's been a little while. Okay, so she moved out, and she's living at the dorms at college, and I will let her give a little update of how that's gone and what she's been up to the last month or 2 months, whatever she says it is.
So last month, I went on a big canoe trip.
Yeah, before school started.
Yeah, before school started, a whole week out on the Green River. And then I started school, and I have roommates.
And in the first week, everything went wrong?
Absolutely everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Yeah.
First and second week of school.
Yeah, tell people about all the stuff that went wrong.
First day of class, within the first 10 minutes, my laptop broke.
Mm-hmm. Brand new laptop, by the way.
Brand new. We bought it this summer.
Yeah.
Brand new laptop broke and wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi for some reason, and it, the network adapter just disappeared. And so I took it to the IT building and they fixed it. And then later, or the next day, it broke again. So I took it back again and they fixed it again. And then it broke again. And then I took it back again and they fixed it again. And then it broke again. And then I took it back and they couldn't fix it.
This is going to be a long story. Just kidding.
And then it miraculously fixed itself randomly for no reason. So it resolved.
But the laptop, that was just one thing.
Yeah.
There's 5 more things that went wrong.
I got locked out of my dorm.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. I kept locking myself out.
Your debit card didn't work when you went to the grocery store.
Oh, yeah. I went grocery shopping and I went to pay for it and my debit card didn't work. So I had to just leave.
Walk away.
Without any groceries.
No groceries. Your bike lock broke.
My bike lock broke. I had to buy a new one.
Yeah. You got stranded. You got lost on campus multiple times.
I did that every day.
Yeah.
Campus was really confusing and Google Maps never worked.
Yeah.
And there was probably more. My roommate's Mormon. Should I say that?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
But we should say she's not a Utah Mormon.
Yeah, she's an out-of-state.
Which actually makes her less Mormon.
She's actually really sweet. She's a really nice girl. She's from New York. And she even helped me make my pride flag.
Oh, she did? You didn't tell me that.
Oh, I didn't tell you that?
No.
Yeah, well, so I bought every color of sticky notes. And then up on my window, I made a pride flag out of sticky notes, but I didn't have the color orange. And so it was just missing orange. And so she went out and she bought orange sticky notes for me. And she was like, these are for you so you can finish your pride flag. She's super sweet.
That is actually a really sweet gesture.
Yeah, she's really nice. And then I have another roommate who's Mormon, who is a Utah Mormon. Mm. And I don't think I've had a full conversation with her before. Yeah. She's always gone, and she also... I don't know.
She's older.
She is older. Everyone is freshman, and then she's... I don't know what year she is, but she's older. She's the RA.
She's the RA, so she's...
Yep. Yeah. And then I have 2 ex-Mormon roommates. So, we're split right in half. Yeah. Ex-Mormons for the win, though.
Yeah.
It's not even, so...
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, how was that, leaving home and... I mean, I know how it was here for us. How was it for you there?
Well, it was fun. I like living, I love my apartment, and I don't know.
You love being independent.
I love being independent, and I love where I'm living and everything. It's been super fun. And I have lots of friends, and it was a really good time for the first 3 weeks. And then I got really, really homesick once everything started going wrong. Yeah. Because the first 2 weeks was perfect, super fun. And then the 2 weeks after that were just everything went wrong. Yeah. And so I got really homesick and I went home. And then that made it worse, going home and then having to say goodbye again and then go back up. And so I've just been homesick mostly, but other than that, it's been really good.
So that's been, what, maybe like 3 weeks since you came down the last time.
Yeah. Oh, and then I got COVID.
Well, that's right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I just barely got out of quarantine for COVID.
Yeah.
So my roommate actually had to live in the living room of our dorm.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't be in the room with me. So she took her whole mattress and moved it out there and all of her stuff. And I feel bad because I made her
Is she moved back in now?
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I told her I left. I might have not told her that I went home.
Shoot. So she's still sleeping in the living room.
She's like, I wonder.
But you're out of quarantine, so
yeah.
she can move back in.
Yeah, she can move back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
goodness.
I spent the last week just going crazy in my room.
Yeah, being super bored.
I've been obsessively cleaning everything.
And obsessively posting about Taylor Swift.
Obsessively posting about Taylor Swift.
So one thing you need to know about my daughter is that she hasn't always been obsessed with Taylor Swift. She sort of had this, she was like a late bloomer to the Taylor Swift fan club.
I've always loved Taylor
You've
Swift.
always liked her.
But I was more of like a casual fan before.
Totally.
And then in the last maybe 2 years, it's kind of...
Since 2020.
It's kind of taken over my life.
Mm-hmm.
And she's releasing a new album in 25 days. So, as of right now, 25 days. And so, that has been the highlight of my quarantine, is seeing all her posts. And then I repost all her posts. And she's been releasing album names and stuff.
Yeah, so you don't want to follow her on Instagram because that's all you'll see.
That is all you will see. Genuinely, every day I post about Taylor Swift.
I know.
I just know that this is my favorite album. It's already changed my life.
It's already changed your life. She's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just say that. You've never known somebody who likes Taylor Swift as much as she does.
I know everything about Taylor Swift.
I know you do. We should just do a whole episode about Taylor.
I should just start a Taylor Swift podcast.
Oh my gosh, you should.
I could do it. I could talk about her endlessly.
But the only people that would listen are the people who are as obsessed with her as you are.
Good.
Which I'm sure there's plenty.
There's plenty.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's plenty.
My Instagram feed is full of them.
Yeah.
That's where they all are.
Because you follow all the Taylor Swift freaks too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah. So things have been good, but they're hard and we're getting through it. I think technology helps us because we have the Marco Polo app, so we talk almost every day. Yep. I still get to see your face, and so that's been good. But when she came down a few weeks ago, she decided to dye the dog red.
There is no evidence that was me.
Oh my God.
You have nothing against me.
So we have
a
cute, what used to be an adorable little white dog.
I am innocent until proven guilty.
And then
this is America.
She and her brother dyed the dog purple.
These are false claims.
Back in June.
Lacking evidence.
And then in September, when the purple was almost gone, then she dyed him red.
This is false. This is slander.
Okay. Anyways.
No, she has no evidence that it was me.
She's a troublemaker.
She's crazy. I literally live in not here. I was
oh, awesome. Okay. So, our topic for today, we kind of, because she came down this weekend sort of last minute. I didn't know she was coming down until she was basically on her way. And then today we were like, hey, we should record a podcast. So we really haven't planned very well about today, but we do have a topic that we've been wanting to talk about for a while, and that is patriarchal blessings. So she is my only child that received a patriarchal blessing.
Because I'm the best.
Because you're the best. Most brainwashed child. And my son had already left the church before he was ready. And then my other daughter, she just never wanted one. She didn't really care. She wasn't into the church really either. So,
and I got mine a month after my best friend cousin got hers.
Oh yeah.
And so that definitely influenced it. She got hers, true. And I was like, ooh, maybe now I need to get mine. Telling me to get mine as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to share just a couple things that I learned in the 5 minutes that I was hurrying to prepare something for this episode so that I had any knowledge whatsoever. But the office of the patriarch, most people know that Joseph Smith's dad, Joseph Smith Sr., was the first patriarch of the church. And he was called even before the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Did you know that? Yeah, so the office of the patriarch of the church was created very, very early on, right? And it was meant to be passed down from father to son through the lineage, right? So the second patriarch of the church was Hiram Smith. And
that's Joseph Smith's brother?
That's Joseph Smith's brother. So it was Joseph Smith Sr.'s son, right? And because clearly Joseph couldn't be the patriarch, he was the prophet, right? So his brother was a patriarch, and then it was passed down through Hiram's lineage that way. So his son, I think John, see, now I don't remember all the details, but I think John was the third one. So what ended up happening is they had a patriarch of the church, which was basically like the head patriarch. But then they started calling local patriarchs like over stakes. And as the church was growing, they had lots of other patriarchs, but they still had the main patriarch of the church was always down through that lineage of the Smiths. And so the last patriarch was Eldred G. Smith, and he was patriarch for like 32 years or something like that, from like the 40s until like I think it was 1979, when Spencer W. Kimball basically, and I don't fully understand, and I didn't look into it enough to really know the reasons, but they basically put him on emeritus status, which means like he's no longer like actively serving as a patriarch. And then they never called a new patriarch of the church. And I don't know if it's because they didn't have any other father to son. I don't know if like Eldred G. Smith didn't have a son that could be a patriarch. Maybe he didn't have a son, or maybe his son wasn't worthy or something. I don't know for sure. But for whatever reason, they stopped calling a church patriarch. And so ever since then, we haven't had that. Weird, huh?
Yeah.
So, but the crazy thing is he lived to be 106 years old. He didn't die until 2013. 2013. Eldred G. Smith, the last patriarch. 106 years old. He was like the longest living general authority of the entire church that ever existed. He was the oldest. So, anyways, just a little fun fact about that. I don't know why they stopped calling a patriarch of the church, but they just from then on only had local patriarchs. So, but once a patriarch is called, he is always a patriarch, meaning he always has that office of the priesthood. But he answers to the Quorum of the 12, directly to the Quorum of the 12, every patriarch. They do their stuff through their state president who they serve under, but they also answer, or they're called directly by the Quorum of the 12. So even Eldred G. Smith, after he was put in emeritus status, he still gave patriarchal blessings to like close family and friends and stuff like that. They said that over his lifetime, he gave over 20,000 patriarchal blessings.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it'd be really interesting to compare patriarchal blessings that he gave, because he clearly gave a lot, right? And part of why we wanted to talk about patriarchal blessings today is because we wanted to kind of compare patriarchal blessings and like how...
You're not supposed to compare.
Oh yeah, we're not.
According to
this
list that we got when we got our patriarchal blessings. Don't compare patriarchal blessings.
Patriarchal.
Don't compare patriarchal blessings.
Right. Yeah, so when she got her patriarchal blessing, it came in an envelope with another paper that said, so I'm going to read you this counsel for those who have received patriarchal blessings. So the very first thing it says is all promises and blessings spoken in a patriarchal blessing are conditioned upon the worthy, faithful living of the person receiving the blessing. So I find that super interesting. And you, what was it that you said about it? That it's a disclaimer.
Yeah, this whole paper is just a disclaimer of your patriarchal blessing.
Yeah.
And basically saying like if all of this doesn't come true, it's not our fault. It's
Right.
not a problem with your patriarch. It is your problem.
Yeah.
Because you weren't worthy, or maybe it'll happen in the afterlife, or just because it doesn't say it doesn't mean it won't happen, or like it goes over everything. It's like a terms and conditions paper.
It totally is. It's like the fine print.
It's the fine print of the blessing.
Yeah. So everything, the first thing on there is basically all of this is conditioned upon your worthiness. It says you should read it often and prayerfully. It's your sacred scripture. So it can be shared with family friends, but it shouldn't be shared with casual friends or acquaintances. It is a sacred guideline of information, promises, and counsel from the Lord to help an individual throughout life. The person receiving a blessing should not expect it to outline all that will happen to him or her or answer all questions. If future events, for example, marriage or a mission, are not stated in a patriarchal blessing, it doesn't mean necessarily that those things won't happen, right? The Lord, for his purposes, may say certain things to one person in his or her patriarchal blessing and different things to another person. Well, duh. Occasionally, members of the same family receive patriarchal blessings, declaring them to be of different lineage. Families are sometimes of mixed lineage, and one lineage will be dominant in one child with a different lineage dominant in another child. I'm sorry, but what the hell does any of that mean?
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand the whole lineage thing, and I really don't want to understand.
There's weird things about that, like what your lineage means exactly, or like I don't know. They don't really go into that very much in the church.
They talk about lineage because okay, your actual lineage is like your genetic family. Right? And so it's so confusing that like your dad could be from a different lineage than you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh yeah, that's no big deal. It's fine. Like, are they talking about like spiritual lineage? Like, does that just mean spiritually you are of their lineage? But that doesn't make any sense either. And then also I know I've heard back in the early days of the church that they could be like adopted into different lineages. Like people of color were of the lineage of Cain, but they could be adopted into a different lineage if they were righteous enough or some shit like that. Cute. Anyways, I really don't understand the lineage thing, and I don't really want to because it's just a bunch of bullshit anyways. Okay, the patriarchal blessing should be viewed from an eternal perspective. Sometimes blessings promised may not come in this life, but may be realized in eternity. Avoid comparing your patriarchal blessing with others. Okay, we're not going to listen to that one today. The interpretation of your blessing will be revealed to you and not to others, okay? It is personal, and only you have the right to the understanding of its content. The patriarchal blessing comes from the Lord. He uses mortal men to be the vessel through which the blessing is pronounced. Each patriarch uses language differently. So they're basically saying, like, if there's mistakes, it's, it's not the Lord. Which, okay, I have to tell a funny story about this because my husband, bless his heart, his patriarch called him the wrong name through his entire blessing. and so he literally from day one kind of discounted his patriarchal blessing and said, like, how can that be a direct message from God? God doesn't know my name. And
it's your personal scripture, but that's not your name at all.
Yeah. And granted, it was close to his real name.
It was close.
It was close, but it wasn't his real name. Yep. And so yeah, that was like a huge item on his shelf right from the beginning. And then when he told me about that, I was basically like, oh, that's just like, that's such a dumb reason to be offended. Just because the patriarch got your name wrong doesn't mean the Lord doesn't know your name, blah, blah, blah. And I made excuses for it. And my husband was just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. How old was he when he got his blessing?
He got it right before he went on his mission, actually. So I know that there was things in Dad's patriarchal blessing that he talks about his faith and keeping his faith and constantly working on his faith and his priesthood. And this is a really interesting and funny part. It talks about how Satan desires to have your soul, and he'll do his utmost to take you from the church and have you do those things that will bring you into inactivity and disobedience. But if this happens, command him in the name of Jesus Christ and through the power of the priesthood you hold to depart, and he will heed your command. But then it goes on to say that he'll keep coming back over and over again. So just keep commanding him to leave. I think that's so funny. It's so funny. Weird.
You have the power of the Lord, but he'll keep coming back.
He'll keep coming back.
Yeah, and we all got a little message about how Satan will tempt us to leave in all three of our blessings. Mine says, these latter days will be difficult. There's much turmoil and wickedness in the world. Satan will try to deceive the very elect of God, and he knows your worth. He will try to discourage and tempt you away from the blessings of the gospel. If you will stand firm, doing the simple things such as saying your prayers each morning and night, reading the scriptures, serving in the holy temple of God, you will have the power to withstand the temptations of the evil one.
Ooh-wee.
Just do the simple things. If only I would have prayed more, I wouldn't have left the church.
You wouldn't have left the church.
I've been tempted. I've been ensnared by the devil. I should have read my scriptures more. I should have prayed more.
Okay, what was that line about that you'll be able to withstand something? Say that again, because I was just looking at mine.
You'll have the power to withstand the temptations of the evil one.
Ooh, okay. So mine says that you will be able to see right from wrong, see good from bad. You will be able to withstand all of the peer pressure and temptations of the world. But that's, of course, after he says, if you live your life pure before the Lord and call on him in prayer, and if you direct your mind and activities to the principles of the gospel, blah, 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 right? So, of course, again, that contingency of, being worthy. So what that says is that if Satan does have power over you, that means that you're not trying hard enough. You're not doing enough.
Yeah.
So I will tell you that when I got my patriarchal blessing, I was incredibly happy with it. Like, I felt the spirit really strong. I felt like it was a really great blessing. I was really happy about it. But there was one item that I struggled with that immediately went up on my shelf. And I will tell you what that is. So let's see. It says, you have been permitted to come through a choice and noble family, a family who loves the gospel and loves their children. I did not believe that my parents were a noble choice and noble family. I honestly didn't. Even at that time when I probably was in, a spiritual high of my life, I was like, Now, I knew they loved the gospel, but I didn't necessarily know they loved their children. But I just remember the choice and noble family thing. And I thought, really? My parents? Their choice and noble? Really?
And you've always kind of said that your mom really put on like a mask with the Lord, and like
totally.
It was totally different around everyone in your ward versus like at home.
Yeah, so that was hard. I felt like if the Lord really knew me, he'd be like, hey, hang in there with your parents. It's going to be okay. They aren't perfect, but they're trying. Yeah. Like, I feel like that would have been an honest message, not your parents are choice and noble and they love you.
That's the point of view of the person who gave you your blessing, not the point of view of the Lord.
Yeah, like if the Lord knew me and knew my parents, he'd be like, hey, I know you're going through a hard time right now with your parents, but it's going to be okay. And they're trying. They're not perfect. Like, don't you think? Like,
yeah.
But of course they can't say that in a patriarchal blessing. Yeah. Right? I really feel like patriarchs, when they are like given some sort of training, they kind of have a checklist of items to go over, right?
Yeah, because there's so many things where it's like, it talks about in all three of our blessings.
Yep.
And it's kind of in order too.
Yes.
In the same order.
Yep.
It mentions all of them. The words are different, but it's still kind of the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, one thing that's in mine that isn't in either of yours is it says, you are entitled to many blessings and were given responsibilities. You were promised the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I just realized they're in the envelope that they gave me with my blessing. There's a short little letter from my patriarch, and he said in the letter, it's just really short, just like, thank you for the opportunity and everything. And he says, Study and ponder what promises were made to Abraham and reaffirmed to Isaac and Jacob. These are incredible blessings, and you are an heir to all of them. What does that mean?
I don't know.
I don't understand the blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I don't, I think I even, was trying to figure out what those were, and I couldn't really find anything.
Yeah.
And, what that meant. Because the fact that he mentioned it twice, and it's different, it's not in yours.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are.
Yeah.
That's kind of a
Yeah, but I'm
weird
wondering
thing.
if it is that related to your lineage of
Well, I'm in I'm in Ephraim.
Yeah, and so am I.
So is Dad.
So, because mine says, okay, you've been permitted to be born into the house of Israel through the tribe of Ephraim. You've been given all the blessings and privileges that accrue to a member of this tribe, including all the promises made to the patriarchs of old. So I feel like that's somewhat similar to what yours is saying, but also different. It doesn't mention Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just think it's interesting that he mentioned it again in his letter, because he didn't mention anything else about what specifically is in my blessing. He says, he just says, thank you for the opportunity to participate in your patriarchal blessing. It was a special time for me to feel and know the love our Heavenly Father has for you and your family. I've included 2 copies of your blessing, one to keep in a special place and the other to share with your family. Study and ponder what promises were made to Abraham and reaffirmed to Isaac and Jacob. These are incredible blessings. And then it's like, should you ever lose your blessing, here's what to do, call, whatever. That's all he says. And so I think it's really interesting that he, pulled that out and made it specific. I don't know what that means.
So, okay, and I might sound like a total idiot right now, but I don't really know how it works. But I think that, okay, so Abraham was Isaac and Jacob's father, right? Okay, so he's got, or maybe Isaac was Jacob's father. Maybe it was Abraham and Isaac, and then Jacob was Isaac's son, maybe?
Is that the lineage of Ephraim?
Well, so I think Jacob was the one who had the 12 sons, which are after the 12 tribes of Israel.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm pretty sure that Jacob's other name, or what he's known by sometimes, is Israel. And then he had 12 sons. So Ephraim was one of Jacob's sons. That's what it is. Okay. So so Abraham was Jacob's grandfather. And then he had 12 sons, which one of those was the Joseph sold into Egypt. It's that story. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe I might sound like such an idiot right now, because I honestly don't know if that's accurate. But basically, all of us come through Abraham. How is that possible? How does every person on the earth? Well, because Noah came through that one of the tribes, and then Noah, everybody else on the earth died when the flood happened.
Was Noah's before or after Abraham?
He was after Abraham.
So then wouldn't we all be from the lineage of Noah?
Of Noah? I don't know.
I have no idea.
See, we are not biblical scholars at all. But see, I bet we're pretty normal. I bet most people are not that biblical of scholars either, to know, how do all these pieces fit together? But you know what's so interesting is in the church, you don't think about that stuff. You totally, you just, even when, stuff is confusing, most people just go, oh, yeah, I'm sure we'll figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. It's not important.
We'll know everything in the afterlife.
Yeah, it's not important. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So yours talks about, I think we were comparing how, both of ours talk about getting an education, which is interesting, but yours specifically says get an education so you can be a good mom.
Yes. Father in heaven has given you the ability to learn and gain knowledge. Make this a matter of importance in your life. Seek to learn temporal and spiritual things that will help you to succeed and be serviceable to your heavenly Father. Knowledge will be necessary in raising your family, in teaching your children the principles of the gospel.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is that the only paragraph where he talks about you being a mother, or is there
there's another paragraph that talks about prepare for your responsibilities of wife and mother. Says, Heavenly Father will send beautiful children for me to raise together with my husband, which was a lot for me talking about a husband, because it was about a year, well, like less than a year after I got my blessing, where I started to question my sexuality.
Yeah.
And my personal scriptures say I have a husband, so that was supposed to be my answer to this question that I was having. That's the answer. I have a husband. This says so. And so it was like, that was a really hard thing for me to kind of like think about, is like, is my blessing wrong or am I wrong? Because
Totally.
I really struggled to deny my feelings that I knew were true. And so I think I kind of rationalized it and said, oh, well, the patriarch probably had to say husband, or maybe, it only mentions it once, like, it's probably just,
So did you think that he made a mistake, or that he chose to say husband because he couldn't say wife?
Yeah, that was kind of like my thinking, or also like, oh, I'm bi, so I could still... So
you could still marry a man.
Husband. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that clearly screws you up in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I even remember having the conversation after you came out, and I asked you about your patriarchal blessing, and you said what?
I said, well, my patriarchal blessing says I have a husband, so I'll just marry a man.
Yeah.
And that was my plan. I'll just marry a man.
Yeah, you're like, I'm still making this decision that I'm going to marry a man because my patriarchal blessing says so, right?
Yeah, it was definitely, and then that kind of like over time broke down. It was like, I'll only date men and I'll only marry a man.
Ugh.
But then it was like, but I want to date girls.
Yeah.
So is it okay to date them as long as I don't marry them? And there was a whole thing with me going to my seminary teacher in 9th grade and asking him. I didn't tell him I was gay because I was still terrified of that.
Yeah.
But I asked him, like, I have some friends who are struggling with same-sex attraction. And like, are they allowed to date if they don't get married? And he just gave me like the most soul-crushing answer of just like, no, that is a sin always. Even if they date, that'll lead to sin. It's just not acceptable at all to be gay at all. And it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
I remember like walking out of his office and just feeling like, defeated, like heavy. Like I was like, ugh.
You just wanted a little bit of like reassurance that things were going to be okay.
And I'm still trying to find like light in what he said, and like, okay, I can still do this. I can be hopeful. But I just remember feeling very discouraged and, like kind of, I don't know, like a little bit ashamed and like, like, oh, this is bad. So I'll just like keep being, just date guys. Okay. That's fine.
Just what? Oh, just date guys.
Just date guys. That's okay.
Yeah.
And like that kind of, I feel like that set me back a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely did.
And so that was really,
that was hard. Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me that. And then what I think is interesting is one of the parts in my blessing that I thought was really like, oh, this is so cool was, hang on, sorry. I bless you that you will be a leader among the sisters of the church and to the young people. Many will come to you for help, guidance, and learning, and you will be able with empathy and love to help them. So I always thought, oh my gosh. And then, I've had callings in Young Women's and in Relief Society. And like, I've totally worked with the youth and Sunday school and primary and the sisters. And like my patriarchal blessing is spot on, right?
Yeah. And then mine has almost the exact same thing. Let me find it real quick, what exactly it says. You will lead the sisters and the youth of the church in various capacities because of your powerful testimony and your ability to speak and communicate. Before that, it says, you will be needed to help build the kingdom here upon earth, to fellowship with the saints, and sacrifice your talents to help teach others of the truth. Wow. So again, saying the youth and the sisters of the church.
Yeah.
You won't be a leader in the church. No.
No.
You will lead the sisters in the youth because that's all you can lead.
That's all you can do. And I never even thought about that. Like, I thought that was telling me that I was going to be a leader. Like, that was an important thing for me. But then I realized, of course I'm going to work with the sisters and the youth. What else would I do?
Yeah, that's
it's
all
not like
there
I can
is.
have any real leadership. That's the only option for sisters.
That's like as high as you can shoot, is being like a young women's leader.
Yeah.
Or
or Relief Society president.
Relief Society president.
And so it's like, we think that that's like a really special thing that, oh my gosh, they got it right. I was a Relief Society president. I was a Young Women's president. No, like that's what they say in everybody's blessing, probably, you know, like and that's also the only option you have as a woman in the church.
But yeah, that's as high as you can go, is in your ward being a Relief Society.
Well, of course you can only be over sisters and youth.
Yeah, you would not see a woman teaching men or anything. If it's a group of men, no. You wouldn't see a woman teaching them or leading them at all.
No, maybe teaching, but not leading.
Yeah.
Maybe teaching in a gospel doctrine setting or a Sunday school setting of some kind, but never leading. Yeah. Women are never leaders over men. And I thought that was really interesting. I know in Dad's patriarchal blessing, it talks about how he'll be called to preside over his brethren, preside over your brethren. And it just never dawned on me that, well, no duh. No duh, I'm only going to serve over sisters and youth in the church. So I think that's really interesting. So one of the things I remember loving about yours is how much it said about, which you already read, about being a mom and how your children, and your home is going to be this beautiful place and stuff. And I felt like mine also kind of said important things about being a mother.
I got a big long paragraph about being a mother and creating a really beautiful home. And I remember really loving that. Yeah. Like I really did, was like, this is exactly what I want. And at that time in my life, I was how old was I? 15? I think I had just
14 or 15.
I had just turned 14 or 15. And that was all I wanted, was to have children in a home and that's what I wanted. That was my only goals in life. I didn't even...
Well, don't you think that was your only goal because that's what you had been told since the day you were born was supposed to be your only goal?
And to also idolize women who have lovely homes and lovely children.
And motherhood.
And that's
pedestalize motherhood.
That's the greatest thing. That's how I can use my gifts best. And I think it's kind of also looking down on women who, just have a career, or looking down on women who don't get married or don't have a lot of kids or aren't being that perfect Mormon mom that you see everywhere. Because
there's kind of you need to be up to the status quo on number of children too. You can't just have one child.
Yeah, can you imagine?
How much faith are you lacking to only have one child or two children?
I'm sure any Mormon women out there who only have one kid, I'm sure they get comments all the time. They're like, when are you having your next kid? What if you just want one kid? I feel like that's not... I can't even think of anyone in our ward who only had one kid.
Yeah, no. Most people don't. And that also brings up people who have infertility. Yeah. And issues with getting pregnant. How do you think they feel in the church? They feel like garbage constantly. That's constantly thrown in their face. And for sure, they're looking at their patriarchal blessing, and there's no way their patriarchal blessing says you won't be able to have children in this life. I mean, how do you think that is even possible, that a patriarch would say that?
Oh, no.
Or that you'll have so many problems with infertility, you're only going to have one child. It would never say that. Yeah. And I can imagine the pain and suffering that causes when your patriarchal blessing says you're going to be blessed with many children, and then you end up having fertility issues, or you never get married. Yeah. And literally that's all they're basically meant to say in your patriarchal blessing is about your marriage and how many children, what you're going to do with your, having kids.
I remember one time at Young Women's, it was girls' camp, and there was this woman, and she talked to us about, she was unmarried, and she wasn't old. She was probably maybe 35, or younger. Like she was still pretty young, and
Mhm.
she talked about how she wasn't married yet and how she just kind of accepted that she would never be married in this life. And she's like, my patriarchal blessing says I'll get married and I'll have kids, and so, but that could happen in my next life, or like after I die. And I just remember sitting there and thinking, like, this is so heartbreaking that she feels like she can't like achieve her goal in life, or like
Yeah.
or like the one thing that she's meant to do, she feels like she can't achieve it. And
Yeah.
also she can't get into the celestial
Right.
kingdom without a husband.
Yeah, her value and her worth is totally wrapped up in her marriage status.
Yeah, I remember that made me so sad.
Yeah, so I remember stuff like that too. And in my patriarchal blessing, I love it because, and granted, I recognize how lucky I am that my patriarchal blessing, you know, felt really like it came true, I guess, or
Mhm.
like I always went to it and just felt all throughout my life like it didn't make me feel less than. It didn't make me feel like I wasn't accomplishing the things that it said to do, because I was. I was
Mhm.
doing all the things, right? And I was having all the kids, and I was married in the temple, and I don't know, I just kind of, so I didn't have a lot of that anguish that I know so many people have about their patriarchal blessings. Like
Mhm.
all this anxiety about like this isn't coming true, so I must not be being faithful enough.
Mhm.
Because again, all of your entire blessing is predicated on your faithfulness. But I loved in mine when it talked about, so it says, you have been given the love, empathy, and understanding that will make you a noble mother in Israel. While you have choices to make, this is the one which will be the most fruitful, one in which you will gain the greatest understanding, and in which the godlike qualities which are possible to obtain here upon the earth can be given. That was really powerful to me because, like, at first I always thought, well, I mean, that means that motherhood is the most important thing for me.
Mhm.
I also, the word fruitful really freaked me out a little bit because it made me think I was supposed to have a ton of kids, right? Fruitful. Um, but I was really excited about the idea that through my experience as a mother, that I would be able to obtain or gain all the godlike qualities that are possible to obtain, right?
Mhm.
And then as, like my oldest son leaves the church, and I have, I start having like what I would consider at the time trials in motherhood, right? Then I start realizing, oh, so I'm gonna obtain these godlike qualities by going through really incredibly hard things. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's like this thing, like you can't get closer to God unless you suffer,
Mhm.
right? Like there's this whole idea of like,
Suffering's a challenge, but if you're not in the church, then it's a punishment.
it's yeah, totally. But like it's this pedestalizing of suffering a little
Mhm.
bit of like, well, it makes you more Christ-like when
Mhm.
you suffer, when you go through hard
Mhm.
things. So I actually took that to mean, oh, okay, I'm gonna become more like God, or more Christ-like. Oh, then that means I'm gonna have to go through really hard things in order to be that way,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was something that
And
stood out to me.
there was a lot of pressure put on you because in your blessing it says like your children will be examples of
Oh,
God.
yeah,
And
yes.
when one of your children leaves the church, like it's
Yes.
and I just noticed mine says build your faith so as to be anchored firmly in the gospel, for it is there that you will find the blessings of eternity as you strive each day to live in righteousness. If you will do this, your children will follow you all their days.
Yes. He's promising that your children won't leave the church,
Mhm.
right? Is that what
If
he's saying?
that's
Yeah.
how I read it.
If you're faithful
If
enough.
I'm righteous and anchored firmly in the gospel, my children will follow me all my days.
So when, not if,
Mhm.
but when your children left the church
Mhm.
at some future date, you would go back to your patriarchal blessing, and that part that says, if you are faithful enough,
Mhm.
would stick out to you, and you'd be like, oh, I guess I wasn't faithful enough.
Yeah, it's my fault.
That's why
And
they
it
didn't.
also gives kind of like it's 100% on you. It's not that your children have free will or the ability to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
It's all based on your righteousness.
Yep.
If your children stay in the church.
Oh, yeah. And also your patriarchal blessing. Nothing that the patriarch said could possibly have been a mistake.
Yeah, no.
He didn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
You just didn't live up to your potential, right?
Yeah.
That's what it says. Yeah. One of the lines in mine says that I bless you that your family will be an example of goodness. And I thought that was really interesting because I took that to mean that like people would look to our family and see how great we are, and then they'd want to be like us. I mean,
which is what every girl wants. That's what every woman wants. People to look at their family and see how perfect they are, and I think that's totally like the church. Such a Mormon thing. Church does that to us. I
think that's a really Mormon concept because I think that people outside the church don't really give a shit what other people think of them. Or how they are portrayed.
Not to the same degree. Where it's like, it's kind of a need. It's not just like, oh, I want them to think we're nice and we're good. It's like, I need to show how perfect I am.
Yeah.
Or people are going to question my decisions,
you need that
faith.
Validation.
Yeah. My worthiness.
They'll question my faith or how good of a mother I am. Yeah. Which is what makes us be so fake and
and I think the standard is way higher in the church than for any other non-Mormon family. Like the standard's really high to be perfect.
Yeah. So I can't remember if I've told you this. I probably have. And I might have even mentioned this on the podcast before, but I find it really funny and sad actually that my parents had 9 freaking children when they were never equipped to have that many children financially, mentally, emotionally, in all of the ways. They were not equipped, right? But my dad's fucking patriarchal blessing says you will be blessed with many sons and daughters, okay? Sons was plural and daughters was plural, right? Okay, so my dad and my mom start having kids. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 effing daughters in a row.
Do you think
in a row?
Do you think if you guys had 2 daughters and 2 sons, you would have stopped there?
Yes! Yes! I actually really believe that they kept having children because of my dad's patriarchal blessing. In fact, that's not just an assumption I'm making. I actually heard my dad talk about it because he would sit and say, well, I know there are sons. Okay, after the 6th girl, the 7th child was a son. And my dad was so happy, was so incredibly happy. But guess what? Sons was plural. So 1 son was not enough. So they had another child. 8th child, guess what? Another fucking girl.
So they had to have another one.
So they have another child.
This is reminding me of what's it called? Saturday's Warrior.
Oh,
where
yes.
they're like, we have to stop having kids because it's not cool to have a big family.
Yep.
And then there's the daughter who's still up in heaven.
Yes, and she's like, please, Jimmy, you told me. Jimmy!
So funny.
Yeah.
I met a return missionary named John, and I told him about
Dear John.
I thought it was so funny. He'd never heard of it though, and I was like,
he
what
hadn't?
do you mean? What? Yeah, I was like, you haven't heard of you're a Mormon missionary, and you haven't.
He's never heard of a Dear John letter even.
Yeah, like Dear John. He had no idea what that was.
That's
like,
hilarious. Yeah. I mean, hello. We need to watch Saturday's Warriors again.
That'd be a good episode.
Yeah.
Just to review Saturday's Warrior.
Let's do it. Let's do a whole episode on Saturday's Warriors because seriously, like the doctrinal issues in Saturday's Warriors is so ridiculous.
It's so funny.
But I grew up just taking all of that in. Like it was gospel truth doctrine. Like that was the gospel doctrine.
Yeah. I 100%. Love like the peer pressure scene where they're like, having too many kids is lame. As if that's something you control. Like, why are they making fun of him for for that. It's so weird.
It is so weird. Okay, we have to stop talking about it because we have to save it for our own episode about that.
We'll have an episode.
We have to do a whole episode.
You got to do it that.
But yeah, I mean, it's incredibly sad that my parents felt so much pressure, and now looking at the patriarchal blessing and going, that freaking patriarch had no clue how many kids you were supposed to have.
Yeah.
He just said sons and daughters because I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's just what he probably said to everybody.
Yeah.
Or maybe he got reprimanded at some time, like, stop saying sons and daughters. That's causing a lot of problems. Just say children.
Yeah, just say children.
I wonder how many people's patriarchal blessings like were specific like that, where like they kept doing something because they thought the outcome was supposed to be what their patriarchal blessing said. Like,
you know what? The population would be so much lower. Freaking Mormons. Just, ugh.
I mean, my mom said that she always wanted a big family, but I know for a fact that they were trying to accomplish his patriarchal blessing, and they were trying to have the multiple sons. They had the multiple daughters right off the bat. They didn't need any more daughters.
Wow.
But damn it, those daughters kept coming.
And they didn't even like each other. Your parents didn't like each other.
No, my parents didn't even like each other.
Way too many kids together.
Way too many kids. And they couldn't afford that many kids either. Like, that just was a dumb idea. So the harm that I think there is actual harm that is caused by patriarchal blessings, even though, like, if you said that to an active believing Mormon, they would be like, oh, even if it's not, gospel truth, or even if they get some things wrong in patriarchal blessings, what's the harm that can be done? My parents is a perfect example of the harm that can be done. Granted, I wouldn't say that I'd want to get rid of any. Well,
you can't say that.
Most of my siblings I really like. But I mean, yeah, it's just it's so crazy. But also I've talked to people who've had terrible anxiety because of what is said in their patriarchal blessing that doesn't line up with how their life is coming around, and like things that are happening in their lives, such as not getting married or not being able to have children, or, my patriarchal blessing. Oh yes. This is one part that did cause me direct anxiety that I had forgotten about. So mine says that I will have an eternal celestial marriage, which I did have. I got married in the temple to my husband. But then it says that my husband will be a righteous and good servant of Heavenly Father who holds the priesthood and uses it and is guided by it. Okay? And
if your patriarchal blessing isn't right, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Remember that. So means you're not righteous.
Well, and I didn't think that. I blamed it on Dad. I was like, he's not following my patriarchal blessing. It says that he's supposed to be a righteous priesthood holder and follow it. So what about all the people who are in mixed faith marriages that say you're going to marry a righteous priesthood holder and they're going to, serve God all the days of their lives, and then suddenly your spouse isn't doing that, or suddenly your spouse decides they don't want to be married to you anymore and you get a divorce? Like, what about what's in your patriarchal blessing?
Yeah, it said you have an eternal companion.
Yeah.
And if you get a divorce, like, then you're, how are you supposed to...
How are you supposed to reconcile that?
Yeah.
I wonder what my mom's patriarchal blessing says about, like, her husband.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to know if there's any woman out there who has a patriarchal blessing that doesn't say anything about a husband. I wonder if that's a thing. Or
oh my gosh.
If it doesn't say anything about a husband or children, I doubt there's anyone.
I bet there are some that don't say anything about children.
Really?
But
maybe
just because children are not a requirement for heaven, but a spouse is.
They probably all say something about a spouse, because I really do think that they have a checklist.
And not just any spouse. It has to be a man, of course.
Yeah.
A righteous priesthood holder man.
Mine only says husband.
Oh, really? It never says a righteous priesthood holder?
It says, Father in heaven will send beautiful children for you to raise together with your husband. That is the only time a husband is mentioned at all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
did you take...
It doesn't... Let's see. Does it say anything about, like, priesthood even?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it doesn't say that he'll have the priesthood, because... Hello? But yeah,
that's interesting.
I'm going to put that question out there. I want to know if any of my listeners, if your patriarchal blessing does not mention a husband. I want to know about it.
Mine doesn't say anything about the priesthood being in my home.
Interesting.
It just says I have a husband.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's literally the only time it mentions a husband or even a spouse or raising my kids with another person.
Wow.
That is the only time it's mentioned.
Interesting.
My
okay.
patriarchal blessing has some interesting things that I feel like are
unique or
kind of, yeah, well, it coincides with my life, like this one about my health, which I don't know how much the patriarch knew about what everything was going on or what we had told him, but there is this line,
that
there will be trials or something. It says, there will be trials and challenges in your life. Heavenly Father will allow these to come to strengthen you and help draw you close to him. Be humble in your trials, disappointments, or even through illness. And at that time, I was definitely experiencing illness. I had a lot of health problems.
Yeah.
And so that was really like, I don't know if our patriarch knew about those or not.
Do you think it's possible that did our bishop know? And do you think it's possible?
I feel like we didn't talk about it a lot.
We didn't, the bishop didn't know?
I don't know.
He might have known.
He might have.
And also, do you know that the bishop was the patriarch's son-in-law?
Oh, really?
Our bishop was his son-in-law.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because I think, I don't know.
But maybe that was just that's the thing is, he could have said that about anybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody has some illness in their life.
Yeah.
Right?
If it's not them, it's a family member, or it can be interpreted so many different ways.
And it's just like somebody who does fortune telling. Yeah. They keep it vague enough that it could totally happen to you.
Yeah, it's something that could apply to anyone, because it doesn't specifically say that all have illness. It just says all experience illness in my life, so
but you took that to mean that God was aware of your illness that you had at the time that we were trying to figure out, right? So weird, right?
It is interesting. Definitely how you can make anything apply to you, and it's
and you can interpret things any way that you want to, confirmation bias. If you want something to tell you a certain thing, you'll find a way to interpret it that way.
They leave it open for interpretation. I think my favorite line is the line about paying tithing.
that didn't used to be your favorite line, but now it's the thing you make fun of.
It's definitely interesting. It is important to learn the law of tithing. Great blessings are associated with this law. The windows of heaven will be open unto you and your family. Knowledge and testimony will be given to you as you live this law. So I have to pay tithing, or else the windows of heaven won't be open to me and my family. And knowledge and testimony will be given to you as I live this law.
Interesting, right?
I have to live this law for knowledge and testimony.
It doesn't say anything about tithing in my.
Really? Does it say anything in Dad's?
Nope.
Must be a new thing they added. They're like, people aren't paying tithing enough. Start putting it in the blessings.
Yeah. The next generation, they're like, you must pay tithing. Yeah, that's super interesting. So I'm fascinated by the nuances and the kind of the even vagueness of the blessings that basically just go through the general tenets of Mormonism and the basic checklist of what you're supposed to do in your life. And I would bet that every patriarchal blessing is very similar in that it goes through marriage and family and children and jobs and callings and Satan and warning against Satan and living a healthy life. Dad says something about obeying the word of wisdom so that his health, and that he'll be blessed with good health and he'll be blessed to live a long life. So I just think patriarchs probably have that list in their mind, and then they just use that to
it's not like Utah's the most diverse place. Pretty much everyone's lives are very similar, and in the church everyone has this cookie cutter image of what your life should look like. And that the patriarchal blessing totally follows it. So
Yeah. I would be really fascinated though to know. So if people will tell us, I want you to message me if your patriarchal blessing, women, if your patriarchal blessing does not talk about marrying a man at all.
Does Dad say anything about a wife?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact,
I want to know what it says.
Okay.
I think the difference between men and women's blessings.
Oh yeah.
Are interesting. The things that they're told. Like Dad says, he'll be a leader, and we only get to lead other women.
Oh yes, because I mean, his specifically says that he'll preside. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes. Okay, Dad's is really funny. I think this is really funny. Okay, so in days to come, God will give unto you a wife. So
he'll give it to you.
I'm a piece of property.
That definitely.
Yeah.
You'll be given a wife.
God will give unto you a wife. Okay. So that's the first thing. Then it says, care for her, provide for her.
Like a little puppy.
Watch over her.
Let me give you a wife. You gotta take care of her. It's a big responsibility.
And then this is great. Watch over her, and she in turn will bear your children.
Oh.
Yep.
It's so like possessive. Where it's like, that's what she's gonna bear your children. That's what a wife is there to do. Here you go. Here's a wife. Like, I'm giving it to you. Oh.
Yeah, isn't that gross?
Bear your children. Like, imagine you get married and your wife is like, I don't want to have kids. Yeah. Like, I don't want to. Or even if she's like, I don't, we can adopt kids. Or like, I don't want to, get pregnant or anything.
Yeah.
Or if she has infertility. Like, it's.
Yeah, what if I had fertility issues? Because this says she will bear your children. Yeah. I also, the care for her and provide for her.
I'm sure patriarchal blessings put a strain on so many marriages.
They have to, right?
Because, like, what if they don't line up?
Yeah.
That must be something you gotta do before you get married.
I know of people who, like, didn't marry a person that they really loved because it didn't line up with their patriarchal blessing, And then it's like, what if that really was the person you should have married? Not that I don't necessarily believe in like soulmates or like that there's only one good person for you, but I mean, but then I kind of do believe in that when it comes to me, because I just think like I couldn't have married anybody else, but then it's not like I ever met that many people, but like I really do feel like I was supposed to marry Dad. Like, I don't know. We have a really good marriage.
Yeah, I think people can have more than one soulmate too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one person in the whole world that you are meant to be with. I think there could be lots of people that you could be meant to be with and marry them and live with them forever and be happy. Yeah. But I think that could be multiple people.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think that you might have soulmates for different times in your life.
Yes, that's kind of what I mean. Like, maybe while you're, you're a teenager or something, and you meet someone and they are your soulmate, but not necessarily the person you're meant to marry or live with forever. Yeah. Like, it's like you can still meet people and have them be meant for you. And it doesn't even have to be romantic either. I think like you can have friends that are soulmates or like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. So, okay, well, maybe we should wrap up this episode just by saying, patriarchal blessings, take them with a grain of salt. They're all basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel sad for the people who they caused a lot of anxiety for, including you, because when you're going through trying to figure out your sexuality. In fact, that's a topic that was talked about all the time in the parent group that I was in on Facebook. It was a Facebook group of parents of queer kids, LDS parents of queer kids. And that was a topic that was brought up all the time. Like, hey, did your queer kid get, who has a kid who got a patriarchal blessing? Did it, is your gay son, does it say he's going to marry a wife? And like, there was lots of conversations about that. And it's like, well, yeah, of course it's going to say that. It's never going to say you're going to marry a husband, that you're going to have a gay partner and adopt kids. Like, there's no way the patriarch would ever say that.
Yeah, in the end, I really loved my patriarchal blessing, especially when I first got it. And I do think it's still meaningful, but there are things in it that are very problematic.
Yeah, and cringy.
And definitely caused me lots of heartache.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, as with everything in the church, there were things that I liked about it, but in the end, like deep down, it wasn't good. It was definitely hurtful.
Yeah, because it was setting you up for disappointment, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
And like having your entire life plan written out on a piece of paper
when you're 14 years old.
14 years old, and seeing like, oh, this is my life. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by some old white man
and
ordained by God.
Yeah.
So this is it for me.
Not just ordained by God, but it was God's words to you.
Yeah.
It was what God wanted you personally
Mm-hmm.
to know about your life. So I find that really fascinating as well.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear other people's experiences with their patriarchal blessing. If anybody wants to share, message me or reach out to me, because I think that's a super interesting part of the church. So, and if anybody knows why they stopped having patriarchs of the church too, I think it may have something to do with the lineage thing, but I don't know for sure. If like maybe they were running out of direct descendants of Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyways. All right, well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you later. Bye.